Hello, friends. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. Computer decided it needed to reboot. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. I'm gonna check a couple things here real quick, and then we will get started. I appreciate everyone tuning in today for this episode of Talking Timeshares Tuesday Live. I don't know why that decided to open there, and we will. Three people on. Fantastic. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Tuesday evening, and we are going to talk about this weekend timeshares for week 27, 2025. Basically, it's a new series we started, as mentioned last week. Gave it a little shot at just trying to go over the four main topics that we covered in the newsletter, chit chat for a little bit. Anybody online gets to ask questions or interact if they can. It's just something I'll start doing every Tuesday. Uh, you know, give people a chance to chime in and participate. And I actually genuinely like to have these conversations and talk about these topics myself. Even though I do tend to chime in on the forum topics like that, it's a bit more fun just to be able to freestyle and give my own opinion and hopefully share the thoughts that other owners may be having in discussing these items. So, without further ado, topic number one: the announcement by Disney Vacation Club on their new rental crackdown rules. This is an interesting one, and as I mentioned, this Disney is not the first company to implement some crackdowns and new rules against what they're calling commercial renting, or we just call it renting in a whole. But they're certainly the most notable one to implement something like this. So when we talk about cracking down rentals, we've seen major changes by Wyndham, by Blue Green, to straight up curb renting. Whether they want to do it under the guise of curbing commercial renting, which is probably, if anyone want to discuss it or if anyone want to nitpick it, they're probably going after people that rent out units to the general public more than they use their own personal units. And whether you want to define that person as commercial renter or just exploiting what they probably were sold their timeshare for, meaning if I, most people attend a timeshare sales presentation and they're told that they can rent out their unused weeks and cover their maintenance fees or even more. So for someone to utilize this and buy their timeshare and try to rent it out should be perfectly acceptable. But you have people that go the extra mile or try to uh, stretch a dime into a dollar and will attempt to buy buku points in order to make reservations at the top prime locations and then offer those out on the rental market to try and not only cover their maintenance fees but in many cases make a profit. Now I'm not going to get into whether or not that's good or bad. I could probably poll 100 different people and get 100 different answers. So, or you find most people on one side of the fence or the other. People that think it's perfectly acceptable to rent out their timeshares without question and in limited quantities, and you have people that probably feel that it's okay to rent something you're not using, or maybe you take a reservation, you rent a reservation. But obviously the gray area in the middle is vast, and people probably the majority of timeshare owners probably fall somewhere in that gray area on their thoughts on the matter. But what is a unified fact is across the timeshare industry, owners are frustrated when they can't make reservations that they want at resorts they want when they want to go. And it becomes even more frustrating when they see those reservations available for rent, whether it's through a commercial website, whether it's through Tug, whether it's through Red Week, whether it's through eBay or other sites that, especially like Disney, that have dedicated sites for renting out points and renting out reservations. You can see how a regular owner who is not engaged in this activity can become frustrated that, hey, I want to rent this week. I want to try and get spring break, but it's unavailable, or I've owned for 10 years and I've never been able to rent Thanksgiving or never been able to rent Christmas, but I can, or never been able to reserve through my ownership these weeks, but I always see them for sale. It's hard to argue against that frustration. You certainly can't tell someone that that's just the way it is, because they certainly weren't told that when they bought. And no one can argue that that's not a frustrating scenario for someone to encounter, especially they bought 1 week and they expect to be able to use it when they want to go. And then on the flip side, you have someone who has a variety of weeks or has purchased enough points in a system to allow them to make not only their own reservations for themselves or their family, or maybe even multiple reservations per year, but then have leftover points that they use to cover their costs or offset their maintenance fees. I'd have a hard time arguing against that as well. I think in most situations, both sides are probably more against someone who is clearly renting far more than they own. Meaning they may take one or two vacations a year, but they're renting out 50 or 60 or 100 or are more reservations to other people's names, not friends and family and such like that. And in that situation, again, it's not difficult to see the frustration for a large percentage of owners in any system that would encounter that. And you can see where a system like Wyndham or Disney, or in this case, would want to be proactive in whether or not actually taking steps to enforce it, but at least announcing a policy that indicates they're against it. And in this case, it's just a checkbox when you make a reservation that you're indicating that, quote unquote, this reservation is for personal use. I have not actually seen what the punishment would be if you don't check that box. Do you not able to make the reservation? Does it just not happen? Are you flagged on some super double secret probation watch list? Are you sent a nasty email, or is your membership terminated? I don't know. I haven't seen anything in regards to what the punishment is for both not checking the box or if you are deemed in violation of this new policy. So what everyone's waiting with bated breath is to determine what actually Disney is going to do to enforce this. If it's just a rule with no teeth, then the ho hum, and things will carry on. But at least in that case, Disney will be able to say that, hey, we've taken steps to try and curb the problem, but not actually solving the problem. And I don't think there's any solution that's not going to make a percentage of owners mad. So if you swing the pendulum the other way and say absolutely no renting, then you piss off this group of people. And if you don't do anything about it, then you piss off this group of people. So it doesn't matter what decision any timeshare company makes when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of owners. One group is going to be upset or feel that they have been disenfranchised or otherwise being left out in the cold. So whether or not you are pro-renting, whether or not you are anti-renting, this situation exists across all major timeshare platforms. It's nothing unique to Disney, although Disney genuinely is probably the easiest system to rent, and they rent for staggering amounts. For any of you who have tried to rent points or make reservations at Disney properties, so this is going to be a very big deal should Disney choose to pursue this forward and actually make major changes to start curbing this process. And I would imagine that when it was thought up, if it's me just spitballing, that this was intended to go after the top echelon percent of people, or even maybe even some companies out there that specialize in nothing but renting out Disney points. They don't own the points, or they own massive quantities of points, not for personal use. But it'd be hard for these entities to argue that this use is personal, that they are not engaged in the business of renting out commercially. But again, it all remains to be seen how Disney is going to move forward in enforcing that rule versus as now they've just announced it and made the rule. So I will be interested in how this plays out. We see it playing out on the Wyndham side. We see it playing out on the Blue Green side. I don't expect that at some point almost all major systems will start implementing rules like this, because the biggest complaint that people see these days is that hey, I'm an owner. Try to make a reservation. I never get what I want. It's not available, but I can go on a Tug, or I can go on Red Week, or I can go on VRBO, or I can go on. That's not sorry, not that. Go on Expedia in some cases, and see that unit available for rent. How come I can rent it for twice my maintenance fees, but I can't ever reserve it for what I own? That's not what I bought into the system for. And that has been a complaint in the timeshare industry since dirt. So I don't think that problem is going to go away. But you do see these processes that are implemented to allow systems to at least claim they're making an effort to make things better for all owners, and we will see how that goes. So if you do have any comments, I see fantastic, a bunch of people online now. You're welcome to type it in the chat. I'll respond as we go along. I don't think it's delayed. So if you have any questions or comments, I'm always happy to interact. I actually love talking about this stuff and going back and forth. But without that, we will go on to topic 2, which was Ohio Attorney General sues another exit company. Always, kudos to any Attorney General's office that makes any sort of effort to combat these scams that plague this industry, especially timeshare exit and cancellation scams. We hope there's a nice, warm, special place in hell for the people that operate these businesses. The interesting thing about this story was that there were only a very, very small number of victims. Obviously, Ohio Attorney General is only representing Ohio residents to go after this, but I think it was only like 6, which is just an incredibly small amount. And again, I'm not trying to downplay their efforts. Thank you so much for going after this, but it just makes me question how attorney general's offices choose what to go after, how they choose to pursue these scams. Because you look at some of these companies that are just operating with impunity across the nation, and just fleecing thousands upon thousands of owners. And this one gets the attention, and they've victimized six. Now, I have no doubt that there are probably many more victims that this company has taken advantage of, and only those six were the ones that reported or made proper claims to the Ohio Attorney General's office. But is it truly just the people that are being victimized by these other timeshare cancellation and exit companies, are just not reporting uh, it at all, or just no one in Ohio is reporting it? I'm just always baffled at how some of the larger players never seem to become in the crosshairs. The last major one we saw, obviously the biggest one, was the timeshare exit team. Seeing them being taken down by I think it was the Washington or Oregon Attorney General's office, and they just closed their doors and haven't come back, which is great news for all owners. But there are plenty of other entities that have just stepped right in and picked up the slack. So it is just very, very frustrating to see these companies just continue to dominate social media and dominate searches and Google searches and Bing searches and all that, for anyone searching for any sort of timeshare exit or timeshare cancel or get me out of my timeshare. That the search results, the paid search results, are just dominated by these companies that are paying six figures a month in ad spend, because the money is just rolling in. When your conversion rate, when someone decides to do business with you, is $5,000 to $10,000, you can easily spend 50 or $100 a click and not even bat an eye. So again, thank you very much to the Ohio Attorney General. I give you props. I thank you for spending the resources. You're probably stretched thin resources to go after what is a relatively small potatoes scam in the timeshare exit and cancellation industry, but you did it, and you're head and shoulders above many of the other attorney generals who have taken no effort or made no efforts to curb these activities that are responsible for ripping off their residents. But I really, really wish I knew at what level, or what trips the scale, or what makes it onto someone's desk, that some action will actually be taken to go after this. Because it's clearly not a number of complaints. As I can't imagine that six complaints somehow, five complaints, nope, we're not going to bother. Six now we're going to move into the investigation stage. So I really wish I knew what caused these to go after. Is we would publish that information so that victims of these scams can make an effort. We always suggest people do file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, even if the chances of you actually getting restitution are very low. I will say 100%, some of these companies continue to operate because people don't complain, because people don't file reports. They either feel foolish or feel embarrassed, or otherwise don't want to admit that they were taken advantage of, or threw away thousands of dollars on a scheme like this. But without reporting it, with details, I can only guess that even if you get 1,000 reports on the same company, if it's just this company ripped me off with no additional details, versus someone who typed up a very well written, detailed complaint, dates, times, names, emails, and such like that allowed them to easily investigate this and bring a suit forward. So I will continue to tell anyone who's victim of any sort of timeshare scam, whether it's an exit cancellation scam, whether it's an upfront resale scam, whether it's someone who calls you out of the blue with some sort of deal to sell or rent or exchange your timeshare, always report this. Always report the company to both your Attorney General's office in your state and the Attorney General's office of the state that company exists in, because doing both of those makes sure that the best chance of maybe five other owners were just like you and reported the same thing, and yours might be the one that actually triggers the investigation. So again, thank you very much to the Ohio Attorney General for suing. The company's name was Timeshare Relief Group and Timeshare Holding Unlimited. They had been mentioned, I believe, on Tug a while back, as we see so often, that these companies will operate for years before any sort of law enforcement catches up to them, and that's why these scams are so prolific. It's very, very low overhead, very, very low risk of being caught, and you can operate for months, if not years, without seemingly any risk whatsoever, collecting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from unsuspecting owners. So let's see how many people. Awesome, still Oh, more people joining. Thank you so much. I appreciate you tuning in. I got to get back to the StreamYard thing. Right now, I'm doing the live studio, so I can't tell who's online. It just shows me the number. But again, thank you everyone who's tuning in on this Timeshare Tuesday. We've been going along for about 15 minutes now, and we're halfway through. And our next topic is Fantasy World 2 owners get a check for $5,000. A few years back, this resort was in dire straits, and owners were given some pretty unhealthy news that it was the writing was on the wall. This resort was going to be closed and seemingly sold. And many owners were presented with a couple options at that time before it actually closed, in which they could. I believe one owner said that they could pay $500 to surrender it back and be out of the timeshare. Obviously, some owners continued to pay their maintenance fees and maintain their ownerships in the hopes that something would be done and they could retain the status of being a timeshare and they continue to use their ownership. And I would imagine that another large percentage of owners just stopped payment and just didn't do anything and defaulted on their timeshares to allow them to be surrendered back to the resort eventually. As it is now, it looks like the resort was sold. It's officially closed. And anyone who was a current owner in good standing, who continued to pay their maintenance fees throughout the rough and tumble past few months or years, got a check in the mail for $5,000 is their proceeds of the sale. So I'd imagine that all of those owners were really shocked to get a check for $5,000, whether or not they broke even or made any money, because in order to get that check, you would have had to have continued paying maintenance fees this entire time. And if that was 3 or 4 or 5 years, you might have paid $5,000 in maintenance fees to get a $5,000 check. And I don't know on the math there. Maybe someone, maybe the gentleman who actually got the check could let us know how long he paid the maintenance fees without being able to use the timeshare. It had to be at least 2 years to see if he actually made any money or broke even. But either way, it's a pretty rare thing for a resort in this situation to be sold like that, and owners get a significant, which I would call a $5,000 check at the end, significant in the industry as well. Uh, but that was wonderful news to any owners who maintain their ownership. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt, because that was truly the end of their timeshare ownership at that resort. I'm sure those that continued to pay and wanted that to be returned to a resort status, to be able to use that timeshare because they enjoyed it and loved being owners there, probably did not have the warm and fuzzy they were looking for in getting that check, because again, that truly signals the absolute end of that particular resort. But hopefully they can take that $5,000 check and they can go buy a timeshare for free on the resale market at a perhaps an equivalent or even better resort, and spend that $5,000 on the next few years worth of maintenance fees and enjoy a couple years of free vacations. And item four, make sure there weren't any comments there. Nope, there aren't. Item four was this is my favorite topic of the week. What is the best Marriott beachfront resort or Marriott beach resort? I love these questions because honestly, there are thousands and thousands of Marriott owners on Tug. The Marriott forum is the most popular timeshare specific forum on Tug. And so when you ask someone a question like this, it's just again, ask 100 people and you probably get 75 different answers. I have personally only been to a couple Marriott beachfront resorts that I would consider beachfront resorts. And I didn't imagine any of those. Well, maybe one, Frenchman's Cove. I went to my honeymoon in Frenchman's Cove and thought that was an absolutely wonderful resort. The beach was just like a postcard type beach, but it was also the size of a postcard. If any of you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. Not exactly what I would call a sprawling beach. If you're going to take a long walk at sunset with your significant other, you're not going to be walking very far. But it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. I just don't think that was probably what this particular poster had in mind, and probably not what the responders and participants in this poll had in mind. But if I had to guess, again, without personally staying at any of these, that I would have guessed the Hawaii resorts, the Aruba resorts are always perennial mentioned as just absolute dream vacations. Like, you're not going to be disappointed going to the Marriott and in Hawaii and the two in Aruba. And so those would have, if I had to bet, that those would have been, two of the top three easily. And probably Hilton Head would have been, just some absolutely magnificent resorts. Now, that said, I don't know if there's a bad oceanfront Marriott resort. At least I've never heard of anyone visiting a Marriott oceanfront resort and being this sucks. I don't want to stay here again. I've never heard that. And I don't think any of those exist. I've personally been to Ocean Point. I thought it was a nice resort. I wouldn't rate it as the best beachfront resort I've ever stayed at. And not to say that it was bad. I certainly don't want to give that impression. It was a wonderful resort and I'd stay there again. Again, just when I picture what is the best beachfront resort? I picture something a little different, and instead of particularly that one. So that was one of the ones that came up on the list. And I will say that my only experience with Marriott and Hilton Head was the fact that that's where my father bought in the 80s. But it was Harbor Town, Heritage Club at Harbor Town, and I wouldn't exactly call that beachfront. Maybe harborfront or waterfront, maybe, sort of, kind of, if you squint a little bit. But Grande Ocean is again, just a resort that people would talk about as an amazing vacation that they would return to in a heartbeat. So it didn't surprise me whatsoever that also came in the list. Now, the one that really surprised me was Newport Coast Villas, and I would have never considered that. I'm again, I don't want to downplay the resort. I'm sure it's lovely. I'm sure it's wonderful. It just, in my mind, I would not have considered that if you asked me to write down what are the top three or what are the top five. That probably wouldn't have been on my list. But now that so many people had chimed in to say how amazing it is, well, maybe I'm gonna have to add that to my list of future vacations to try if I ever take my family out to the West Coast for a vacation like that. People have to tell me who have been there. My only experience with West Coast beaches is that water's cold. We have cold water here, but it's in like natural springs where it's 70 degrees. I personally don't want to go to a beautiful beach and freeze in the water that's 70 degrees or 60 degrees or something like that. Maybe it gets nicer in the summer. I really don't know. I just remember the one time I visited a beach in San Diego, and I just was absolutely shocked at how ridiculously cold that water was, despite the weather being just absolutely phenomenal. I just, you can't argue against California weather, but I just, man, how do y'all deal with that cold water? And so to see that as so many people responded is that being their idea of the best beachfront resort, really kind of opened my eyes at other options out there. And I'd like to see other people chime in to give me their impression on if you've been to Newport Coast compared to say Grande Ocean, or compared to say Aruba Surf Club. If you could pick and close your eyes and travel wasn't an issue, and your family was an issue, which one would you choose as your dream vacation? Which one would you think would be better? And looking at it like that might skew some results there. But no, that really kind of surprised me. I was not expecting that. Was not on my radar at all. But no, now that you have so many people are recommending something, especially when that something is what is the best beachfront resort. Uh, Definitely going to make me consider that in future vacation planning. And hey, that's what Tug is all about. That's how Tug was founded so many years ago, is a group of owners trying to share their exchanges where they had, because you can read about it and you can see reviews on it on the internet from strangers, but when you have so many people, so many timeshare owners chiming in and saying the same thing, it really kind of reinforces the fact that hey, they all can't be wrong, and in staying somewhere like that, uh, really just might change your views on what is a dream beachfront vacation. So with that said, that pretty much ends the conversations that we had, the four main topics that we were covering for Tug on this week. Again, I'm going to do this every single Tuesday. I'm going to go over the four main topics that we discussed in the newsletter, which I choose to be the four most interesting topics covered by the owners in the past week. And I like chit chatting about them. I'm probably going to bring back StreamYard so that I can stream on Facebook. And on here, classify NC as beachfront. You can see the ocean, but you can't walk out of any of the buildings right onto the beach. All right, that's information I didn't have. Again, I hadn't been there. So instead of oceanfront, it makes sense to me for me, and I agree with you completely. If I am talking about the uh, world's greatest or the best beachfront resort, I would absolutely expect, if not walking out of my room onto the beach, I would expect to at least walk out of the resort and maybe step onto a boardwalk and then onto the beach. I certainly wouldn't want to. If I needed maybe a long boardwalk, I mean, there are certain situations like resorts that have to have the giant dunes for erosion purposes, and you got to walk over a boardwalk. But again, I would also, if I'm choosing between that and a place where I open my back patio, step onto concrete, and then step onto sand, that would be pretty much a wonderful beach vacation. So when you're talking about that comes into play. I think the at least the OPM question was, hey, is it convenient? am I packing a bag to walk to the beach, or do I have to get on a shuttle, or I have to drive, or go park somewhere, or is it a hike to get to where I need to go in terms of being on the beach? So, yes, you're not wrong, but maybe people consider that, hey, if the beach is that spectacular, maybe 100-yard hike, pulling a trolley or your umbrellas and beach chairs and such isn't an unreasonable expectation. But I agree. I'm just like you. Is if you tell me that this is the world's greatest beach resort, I would expect when I got there that I'm sitting on my back porch looking at the ocean, and maybe go downstairs, but steps from the beach would certainly be in that category. And if I had to make a long walk, though, that said, Frenchman's Cove, we were in one of the third level buildings, and I had to go down like 4 flights of stairs and 2 elevators to get to the beach, just because if any of you have been there, you know how steep the mountainside that resort's built on. But man, that was a beautiful beach. I would go to that beach again before I would go back to Ocean Point, if that makes sense. Even though Ocean Point was beautiful sand, and the resort was convenient, I walked downstairs, walked to the pool, step up on the beach. But again, my idea of a perfect beach vacation would be Frenchman's Cove over Ocean Point, if that makes sense. So maybe Newport Coast Villas is that idyllic, and is the beach is that spectacular, and it overrides the fact that I can't step out of my room onto the beach, that I have to have a little bit of a walk. But it's again, ask 100 different people, you get 100 different opinions on the matter, and it's sharing different opinions. I would have never considered choosing to go to Newport Coast as a vacation, but seeing what a dozen people all say that they consider it the best beach timeshare that they've stayed at, Marriott wise, it's absolutely on my list now. And if I was ever planning to go on the West Coast and I could pick up a rental or an exchange through Interval to stay there, it's something I would 100% consider at this point, because that many people just can't be wrong. I know people that don't like Snickers bars, people that don't like chocolate, and those people are, I don't know, weird. Who doesn't like those things? But that doesn't mean that those things are bad. But you just something comes out of the blue like that, it makes me want to stay there. And I hope that for anyone who's never been there, also wants to stay there as well, and vice versa. Maybe they've never considered staying at Aruba Ocean Club, or staying at Grande Ocean, or Ocean Point, and now they'll go visit that. So sharing experiences and sharing opportunities to stay at resorts that are absolutely magnificent and will make for a wonderful family vacation and a wonderful memory is what Tug's all about. And that's the whole reason we have the newsletter. And it's the whole reason we have the forums, is to share this information amongst owners who otherwise wouldn't get it. And I'm thankful every day that I get to be a part of this, and share it with each and every one of the hundreds of thousands of Tug members that have found Tug, and shared information and gotten information to make their vacations just a little bit better over the past 31 years. So with that, we're 27. Man, I can't believe I just rambled on for 30 minutes. And I also can't believe that so many of you stayed on and listened to me ramble for this long. And thank you so much for chiming in. And I will see most of you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. And till next time, folks, thanks for watching. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Also, stay on for a little bit. If anyone has a little bit if he wants to ask another question or post something, I'll give it another minute or so, and then I will sign off. But man, I forgot to turn my fan on. Actually, it's hot in here. No, people signing off. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful evening.